Ray Dalio dares to ask the question, are we in a bubble? Let's look at it on the Weekend Review. Okay, let's talk stock market bubbles. Here's what you need to know. First up, let's take a look at the stock market. This is the stock market, the same view as we've been looking at it. Red is the S&P 500, purple here is the 200-day moving average, and what you notice is we've got a rocket ship. We continue to extend far beyond the 200-day moving average. I was hoping for a correction, a cooling off in the back half of February. That did not occur, and we're going to have more on that later. But Ray Dalio wrote something interesting on LinkedIn this week. He asked, are we in a stock market bubble? Now, if you don't know who Ray Dalio is, he is the head of the largest and most successful hedge fund in the world. So when he writes an article talking about stock market bubbles, you should probably pay attention to that. Now, he goes through his article in a very long-winded and technical way. If you know Ray Dalio, then you know that's how he writes. But the conclusion of his article was, no, we're not in a stock market bubble. And I tend to agree. Yes, the stock market is going up a tremendous amount, but why is the stock market going up? Well, one of the reasons why is earnings have been very strong. Here's our earnings season, and what we're looking at is the Magnificent Seven versus the other 493 companies in the S&P 500. And what you notice is the Magnificent Seven, which are the largest weights in the stock market index, they have the lion's share of all the sales growth, 14% growth compared to an average of 2% for the other 493 companies. And they have nearly all of the margin growth as well, 23% margins relative to only 9% margins in the other 493. They've also managed to increase their margins on a year-over-year basis. What does this mean? All the sales growth is going to the big boys, and all of the margins, all of the profitability is also going to the big boys. And so when we see the stock market moving in a vertical fashion like this, it can make us nervous. But generally, the only time that we would start to worry about bubbles would be, when this rise isn't backed by economic reality, isn't backed by fundamentals. These Magnificent Seven stocks, they are unregulated monopolies, and so they are sort of separate from the business cycle. When times are good, they're very aggressive and they can grow very rapidly. When times are bad, they're very defensive and they're where you want to be, even while the economy is cooling in a point in time like now. So, no, I don't think we're in a bubble. If all you know is price, you don't know anything at all. But if you look at the earnings that is driving what's going on in the market, you could say, no, we're not in a bubble. We're in a bull market. And that actually comes to my mistaken prediction about the second half in February. So every prediction, whether right or wrong, tells you something. This data that I showed you talking about seasonality in the second half of February being weak, this is true data. This isn't false. This isn't a lie. This is what the real numbers are. And yet it didn't happen this year. So what does that tell us? The wrong message would be, I'm actually right and we're going to go down more later, right? That's not the message to take away from me being wrong about the second half of February. The message you're supposed to take from this seasonality being overridden is that what's going on in the stock market is something very strong, stronger than even the force of seasonality. What is that? It's earnings, which are very strong, and it's momentum behind these stocks. The Magnificent Seven stocks and their earnings is what caused the stock market to keep going higher. So what does this look like to me? Doesn't look like a bubble. Looks like a bull market, a very strong one. Doesn't mean we're not going to have corrections. We're overdue for one. We need to get one sooner or later. But I think the overall primary trend of the market is higher. You can take some confidence in that. It's backed up by the numbers. There you go. Good news for you. Have a great weekend.